Hello, and welcome to Making Sense of It. This program, do you ever wonder why you do the things you do? Well, this program is for you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. And our speaker today is Jan Moray, and she is the executive director.
Board president.
Yeah.
I'm board president.
board president of the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. And today she's going to be talking with us about living a life of competency. So welcome everyone, and we look forward to our discussion afterward. And then Jan, we'll turn it over to you, and thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you, Mona, for the introduction, and hello to everybody who's here now and those who are watching later on. So the first time I really thought of the word competence was a few years ago when I was branding Glasser's pamphlet called Competence in the Classroom, because I had never really thought about it that way. But it was, because in Dr. Glasser's way of looking at education was, instead of doing learning, where you were memorizing facts and having to go, it was more memorization work and wrote, lists and things that you had to do. But then after the test was over, everybody forgot what it was that they learned. And so he was looking at, well, let's look at competency. And especially now that we've got all the information we would ever need, in our hand, that we don't really need to memorize facts anymore, because we can find it out in a few seconds. But being competent in a subject was more important, because that way you really understood it. And part of the way the Glasser Quality Schools were run is that the students are teaching other students. And if you've ever taught anybody anything, you realize that you have to learn the subject really well, but in order to teach it. When somebody's teaching something to you, you go, yeah, I understand. That makes sense. But then when you actually have to teach it to somebody else, you have to dig in a little bit more. And so I've been thinking about competency and living, how to live competently. And so I just thought I'd talk about it. So anyway, I looked up the definition of competence, and it says the quality or state of being competent, such as the quality or state of having sufficient knowledge, judgment, skill, or strength as for a particular duty or in a particular respect. So I'm going to go through different ways of having sufficient knowledge, judgment, skill, and strength. So first of all, about having knowledge is being informed. To learn about something, you need to know the background, know what's going on. And there's something called an informed consumer. And I've always been that way. I remember when I purchased my first house, I knew all about interest rates. I knew what my salary was and how to calculate how much of a house I could buy and all this kind of stuff. And then I remember when talking to my real estate agent, he looked at me and he goes, "You're what we call an informed consumer," which is important for us in life to know what it is we're dealing with so that we can make good decisions. And, and I use it in the medical field as well. So many times we trust our doctors. I'm not saying that doctors shouldn't be trusted, but you do have the option to decline treatment most of the time. And so to be informed about it and to look at both sides of the story, my doctor is recommending this. And this is why you go for a second opinion, is because you might find somebody else who has a different view of what it is that you're doing. And so it's good to have that information, and it's good to look at differing views. And that's really part of the scientific method, is that we discuss pros and cons of different things. And you have one group that believes this way, another group that believes this way, but there's truth in both sides of it. But then as an informed consumer, you can decide for yourself which one makes the most sense for you, or which one is more appropriate at this time in your life. considering everything else that's going on. And so I think that goes into the judgment part of the definition, which I like to call critical thinking. Because if we just accept what somebody tells us without questioning or without considering another opinion, we're not really thinking. And so it's good to start, being more critical of what somebody's recommending for you and trying to understand why they're making that recommendation and why maybe I wouldn't want to do it. And, this is another time when you can trust your emotions and your feelings as part of our total behavior, so that we have these feelings, which are a signal to us, but we don't have to act out on those feelings. We can choose how we respond. And the way we can make an informed decision is by being informed. And so the better informed we are, the better decisions we make, and life goes around a lot better. So in a sense, you're taking responsibility for your life, which is big with reality therapy and choice theory is taking responsibility. I'm not depending on other people to make decisions for me. I am making this decision for myself based on what I know. And so, so as you start becoming more informed, and you're doing things based on making decisions for yourself, then you get more credible, because then people look up to you because you are informed and you can give a reason for why you do things and you don't do things. They may not like the reason, but at least you're standing for what you believe, and that helps improve credibility, for yourself. And so then the next part of the definition is to have skill. And to get skill, you need practice. And so the more that you do things over and over, the better you get at it. And that's one of the reasons why role plays are such an important part of the certification process for reality therapy and choice theory, is because, we can learn all the concepts, but until we practice it, until we actually use them in our life and understand how to deal with different situations, we're not gaining from it. And so that's what we have to do, is to learn to practice what we're doing. And a lot of people think that, for certain skills, you're born with a talent. And I don't know if you're familiar with the book called Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. He did research on athletes, and mainly in the athletic areas, where sometimes you will have like one city that a bunch of gymnasts or basketball players or something will come from that one town. And he was wondering, why did that happen? Well, often it was because there was a famous gymnast or a big soccer player or something that came from the city. So all the little kids, really liked this person. They was their idol, and they wanted to be just like him or her. And so they practiced more. And they found like people with the talent would do well at the beginning, but they didn't have the drive to be the world-class champions. But those children who really had the passion for it and really looked up to that athlete were willing to work harder, willing to put more practice into it and spend more hours doing it. And so they were the ones who became the world champions and the best in the field. So it's not necessarily skill. So you can't use that as an excuse. I can't do this, or I'm not very good at that. You can always find a way if you really want to. And that competence isn't just for those people who have the talent or have the intelligence to do it. Anybody, if you really work at it, you can get there. And so, I think about back when I was in sixth grade, I think it was, I had a teacher. I still remember her name, Mrs. Turk. It was an English class. And we had to write 3 reports every week. And I got really tired of every Sunday trying to find, they only had to be 1 page long, but I still had to find something to write about. And then she made us draw a picture. And I have absolutely no artistic ability at all. And so, but I did them, every week. And then, I always got A's on them. I just kept doing them and doing them. Finally, I got one report back and she'd given me a C. And I was like, a C? How come I got a C on this thing? And I knew it wasn't good work. I mean, I quickly wrote the report, and then my drawing was more of a scribble. And she just looked at me and said, "Jan, is this your best work?" And I remember thinking, I mean, how can you respond to somebody? I already knew it wasn't my best work, but that's been something that's set with me all these years. Is that my best work? And so I'm not satisfied with myself if I'm not doing good work. It might not be my best work unless I'm really interested in something, that I will put out full effort and do my best work. But in life, if you want to be good in life and to succeed, and succeed is different for different people. It's whatever you want it to be, you can do it. You just have to keep raising the bar for yourself and keep moving forward and putting your best foot forward. And things will happen, but it doesn't happen without knowing what you're doing and understanding what's going on, and practice and patience. It's, some things seem insurmountable at the time, and you start working on them, and it's like, oh, this is just too much to do. But if you can break it down into little pieces and little things, the practice, that the patience will pay off. And I give the example of when I was a kid, my mom used to always turn to me when her jewelry would get all tangled together. Because first of all, she did not have very good close vision, and I did. And so she'd give it to me, and it'd take a while, but and it was kind of like doing a puzzle for me. I tried to figure out where all the little pieces were going, and loosening it up and undo them. And I could do it just in a few minutes. I'd have them untangled. But it was patience. For her, she just didn't have the patience to sit down and do it. But for me, it was a challenge. And so I could do it. And that's, with a lot of things that you try to do in life, at first it might seem too difficult or too complicated. But if you can break it down and just take your time to learn it and to understand what's going on, then it can come together for you. And so then along with the patience and the learning and stuff, you don't want to be stagnant. You want to keep moving forward. You want your what's called continuous improvement in the quality engineering world is you're always raising the bar for yourself and trying, what's next? What next can I do? So I haven't been able to accomplish this. Maybe I'm not ready for that right now, but sometime later I'll come back to it and keep working on it and keep improving what I'm doing. But then also, as you move along in an area and you're continuing to get information from all different sources, you can change your thoughts about something, change your opinion on something, because now I found some information that is helps me to understand things a little better in this area. And though I wasn't around at the time when Dr. Glasser was in his heyday and developing his choice theory, his theories, I've heard stories that he was constantly changing his theory, and people would get upset at him because they weren't ready. They weren't ready. They were still trying to digest what it is that he had, but he's way over here, still forward thinking, moving forward. But I think that's what's important is in life, is that we keep progressing with the information that we gain. We never stop gaining the information. We keep moving forward and just keep making sure that we're staying current with what the information is that is out there. And so, you can use these techniques. And then the strength. Let me get to the strength part of it. This as the last part of competence. Once you become really good at what you're doing, a lot of people want you to do things for them. It just happens that way. So the strength is learning to say no, learning to say, I have, I can do as much as I can, and understanding what your limitations are. What can I do? I don't want to overload myself, because if I overload myself, then I'm not going to be doing competent work anymore, and I don't want to disappoint. And so learning to say no, is another way to keep, competence going on. And so these skills can be used in relationships. For one thing, is that once we utilize the concept of choice theory, we use them in our relationships to help to create good relationships, so that we stay connected with our families, because that is so important. Especially over the last couple of years, where people were removed from getting together and doing things together. That hurts us, and we become less satisfied with their life and things. And so we have to figure out a way to keep those relationships going and keep them strong. And then I've got another example here is with, these days everyone's talking about inflation, how prices are going up and stuff like that. And so if you have competence in finances, you understand how not to get too far into debt. And the whole when you use credit cards, those are enabling you to overspend. And so when you can understand that, because I want something now, but I don't have the money, so I just charge it. But you understand that the interest that you're paying on that credit card really means that you've been inflating prices for yourself all along, because you are paying more for the goods that you're buying. And so, so understanding how to deal with your expenses, and to make sure that you're not spending more than you're making. That's all part of competence as well. I understand how much money I have, and then that I cannot spend. I have to create the discipline. I have to practice at it to create the discipline not to spend more than what I bring in. I can either bring in more money, get a third job or whatever it is, or I can stop wanting as many things. And so you have to learn how to structure your life so that you're living within that place. So living competently involves work and it involves discipline, but it's possible. Anybody can do it if you set your mind to it. And so I want to close here by a quote from Madeline Bridges, who's a poet from the late 19th century. And she says, "Then give to the world the best you have, and the best will come back to you." So that's the message that I want to leave to you. And we'll go on with your questions.
All right. So let me see. Are you telling us that to be an informed consumer needs information?
That's kind of what informed means, right?
Would you read that whole definition of competence? You kept breaking it down a little bit. I'd like to have it all together.
Okay. The competence is the quality or state of being competent, such as the quality or state of having sufficient knowledge, judgment, skill, or strength as for a particular duty or in a particular respect.
Okay, yeah, well, putting it all right there together, that really, and then you broke it down beautifully so that we could see it. And the skill to practice what you want to become, what you want to learn. Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was, when my kids were little, well, when I first learned about choice theory, my kids were teenagers. And so when I was dealing with them, they didn't always do what I wanted them to do. Surprise, surprise. and so I followed, I bought Ollie Glasser's books and I got his parenting books, and I did follow what he recommended, even though it didn't quite seem right, but it did, but it didn't. And but it worked. It might not have worked immediately, but now I'm reaping the benefits of that. And so, I mean, that's the thing with the patients too, is that you don't always see immediate results in what you're doing. But if you really believe in it and you're consistent, I mean, consistency is another point I believe, is that you're consistent with what you're doing, then you gain credibility because you don't waver. This is the way I'm doing things, and this is the way it is. It's not like today I'm doing this and tomorrow I'm letting you get by with murder. It's I'm being consistent in how I'm parenting, and I think you gain a lot of respect doing that. It all just kind of builds.
Right. And talking about Dr. Glasser's axioms, one of them is, the very important one is that we're always doing the best we can. However, sometimes we're not. So we need to continually ask ourselves, am I doing the best I can?
Right. Is that your best work?
Which goes into that evaluation, and that everything you're talking about is looking at it and seeing if it is plumb or not.
Right.
And so then it sounds like that we get down to the bottom and you really turn the light on by shining it brightly, that there's just that possibility that we are influencing inflation.
Yes. Yeah.
That we need that light to be able to see. Oh.
Well, you get stuck into doing things because everyone around you is doing it and you don't think. And that's why the critical thinking part is so important as well, is because you're seeing people around you doing it. I mean, I can remember very early on, I don't think I had learned about choice theory at that time, but I was struggling through during a period, and I was prescribed medication to take for depression. And I just couldn't take them. There was some cognitive dissonance going on inside of me that I just felt like that was not a good thing for me to do. Though I said, well, this is going to help make me feel better. I'm going to be happier. I won't be so sad, because that's the narrative that I'd heard from. That's just, everybody knows that, right? You're depressed, you take the pills, you feel better. But that's not necessarily the truth. And that's where you look at getting the information from both sides so that you can make a decision that's right for you. And then shortly thereafter is when I learned about choice theory and Dr. Glasser's attitude towards medication. And then I became adamant, no, I'm not going to take it. And I'm very, very glad that I didn't, because I don't know how dependent I would have been on them had I started them. And I think that's what's so important about getting the information. And especially nowadays, that there's such a divide between one side and the other. Even though you really don't want to believe this thing over here, at least listen, because there's something that may strike a chord with you that helps you to think, well, maybe I want to investigate this a little farther. But if I just dismiss it from the beginning, I may never learn. I may never know that there's a better way for me to do something. For other people, they just make that decision for themselves. But for me, it wasn't the way to go. Yeah.
And making a decision for you is really the most power that you have.
Yeah.
So those that are watching this later and they say, hey, this lady's pretty good. I'd like to know more about what she's talking about. So what was the one you did? What was the title of it? They can go back and look on the Making Sense of It, and it's something about being your own. I am my depression. I am my antidepressant.
Oh, I am the antidepressant. Yes, I am my antidepressant. Yes, yeah. Right.
So look back through, and Jan did an article a verbal article for us on I am my depression and how she overcame that.
Right, because I fired my therapist. I just read a book. but it's practicing. But you have to decide what you want to do for yourself. What are the important criteria for you, and what do I really believe? And that's what's so critical about those critical thinking skills, is to know what I stand for and who I am. If I'm just listening to what the rhetoric is out there in the world, I mean, it's going all over the place. And I don't know who I am. I don't know where I'm going. And I really believe that's a part of why so many people are struggling these days is they really don't know what they stand for. I mean, I hear so much people are saying there's no meaning in my life. Well, you have to create that meaning. You have to create that passion for what you want out of life, and then go for it. I mean, you don't go beating people over the head and telling them you didn't believe this. You just send out little seeds. I mean, because I usually have the opposing view, as you all know here, and I know people aren't going to say, "Oh, Jan, you're right. I'm going to change the way I think about this," because that just doesn't happen. But I'm planting a seed, and somewhere, sometime, that seed is going to sprout. And you're not going to know where it came from. And that's okay. I don't need to get credit. But because that happens to me all the time. I don't remember where I heard this, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the light goes on. And I need to research this more. That doesn't mean you just flip to the next side. Okay, let me research this more and understand this concept a little bit better so that I can decide for myself whether that's the path I want to take.
And you can make a whole new thing by taking a piece of this and a piece of that and putting them together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can put it together for you. You can be creative in how you pull those things together. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and close out the airways. And then those of us that are here will have some chatter and some more talk. So many blessings and good mental health.
Bye-bye.